Hi, it took me a bit to speak about Genesis 30. I wanted to touch on how Rachel and Leah tried to make a man made story into a God's glory story. Rachel and Leah, if you know the story, both of them, they were Jacob's wives, and he worked for them 14 years altogether as he was tricked by his father-in-law Laban. So Rachel was barren. God had kept her from having children. She was the one who was loved so deeply and dearly by Jacob rather than Leah. So God kept Rachel from having children, but he gave to Leah sons. Leah had Reuben as a firstborn, and Reuben, the Hebrew translation to the name Reuben is behold a son. And then she had Simeon, which means he who listens or he who hears. And then she had Levi, which means joined. Levi is the lineage, now the tribe of the priests. And then she had Judah, which means praise or thanksgiving. So when you look into this, you say, oh, truly Leah was blessed. She had all these sons, and God kept her sister from having children. And she was blessed. So Rachel now, she decided to make a plan. She made a plan for her servant Bilhah to sleep with Jacob so that she can bear children for her. Yeah, that's a wild imagination to think that, especially now in the 21st century, that you could give your husband, somebody to your husband to make children for you. But it looked like it was a normal tradition or custom of that time that people could do this without even having any problem. Now, why is this Rachel's plan a man-made plan? She made this plan because of a few things. First, she wanted to cover her shame. And this plan looked very good and looked like it's the working plan for her. And she also wanted to feel better because she was so hurt that she couldn't have children. And we can see in Genesis 30, verse 1, I encourage you to read it in your own time, that she is saying to Jacob, you give me children or I'll die. That is exactly the voice of shame. If you have never heard shame speaking, this is exactly the voice of shame. You also know that Jacob answered and said, what am I to do with this? I am not God. Am I in the place of God now? I can't do anything about this. Any person would be angry. So, another one, she did it because she was hopeless. And she thought this plan will solve all her problems. But there is a hook on this her plan. She did not include God in this plan. It only made her bitter, if not worse. So how is this plan now giving glory to God? Or how is Rachel turning her man-made story into a God glory story? In Genesis 30 verse 6, we can see now, we hear Rachel giving God the credit for the plan she had made, because Zilpah now, because Bilhah now, she had born children for her. So the credit now can go to God. She said, God has vindicated me. He listened to my plea and given me a son. Now, the question is, don't we do the same today? We do our own things in our own strength. We don't consult with God. We just do our own things. Sometimes we manipulate people to get what we need. Or even worse, we try to control others to get what we need. Or even worse, seek some other means, some other avenues to get what we need, and then after, when that thing happens, then we say to people, we go around saying, God has now blessed me. We are giving glory for the things that we've done now in our own witchcraft of manipulation and control, or of the things that we have done in our own strength without asking God. Now we are giving him glory when he did not do it. We can see actually Jesus speaking with the Pharisees when they are saying, oh, you cast out devils, you cast out demons by the power of Beelzebub. Jesus went on to say, look, who do your children cast devils? From which spirit does your children cast devils of? What Jesus was saying, that you can't actually give God credit of the things that he did not do or that he is not doing. You cannot give the devil credit for the things that God is doing, and you cannot give God credit for the things that the devil has done. God said that he will not share his glory with another. Let's stick to that for now. So there was a constant battle between Rachel and Leah, because they were both operating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They did not consider God in their sorrows, in their times of trouble, or even in their sibling quarrel. These two are quarreling. You can hardly think that this story is to do with children at all, because it looks like who has got a one up on the other. Now, Leah, even she had children of her own. When she stopped conceiving, she did exactly the same as Rachel did when Rachel gave Bilhah to Jacob. Now, here is Leah. She is now giving her servant Zilpah to Jacob to bear children for her, as if it was not enough that she already have a boys that God had given her. She still wants more. This can only tell you that this wasn't to do only with children. There is much more. There is a much more deeper thought of why these two were going against each other this way. We can also see from this story that they were living for others. So usually this type of quarrel would happen when you are living for others. What do I mean by that? In Genesis 30, verse 13, you can see that it was all about me, other people, and not about God at all. It was only me. So this was Leah going on with this. She is saying in Genesis 30, verse 18, how happy I am. The women will call me happy. So you're seeing now the motivation of this whole story with servants and children and quarrels and all these things. How others will call me. So I will go to any length so that I can meet that criteria of what others would say about me, what others will see me as. Now, this even gets much more crazy. Because now, Leah's son Reuben, which is the firstborn son of Leah, he went to fetch some mandrakes. So we need to understand what the mandrakes are. He went to fetch mandrakes, especially for her mother Leah. So what are mandrakes? Mandrakes is a love plant. In Hebrew, it is called dudaim. What does this do? It is believed to be a stimulant to help with fertility and conception in a barren woman. Are you seeing the picture? Are you seeing the story? Now, we can actually see that Leah was doing everything in her power, including giving Zilpah to Jacob, including fetching mandrakes to get what she wanted. And now we can see that she also, just as Rachel did, they have removed God out of the picture. So they're trying to do this in their own strength now. So when you remove God out of a situation, you are left with man's willpower and the knowledge of good and evil, which can make things only worse. Okay, this is superstition, all right? Because both Rachel and Leah, they were superstitious. They both believed that the mandrakes is their source of fertility. In their desperate time to please themselves, to please their husband, and to please people, what people will say about them, how the husband could love me more, if only I could give him more sons. So that was a type of validation for both of them. Children, bear children so I can be loved more. You see how people are broken? And now, God is removed from this picture. They are doing things in their own strength. But Rachel was so desperate that he said, I will even give you Jacob tonight. You can have him. Give me some of those mandrakes so that I can eat them as well. And Leah said, yeah, that's a good deal. So I will have him tonight. And you get some mandrakes. That's a desperate situation. But again, this can only happen if you remove God out of the picture. Now, let's speak about God's grace and God's goodness and God's mercy in the middle of all this craziness that is going on between Rachel and Leah. Even in the middle of it all, God is still gracious that at the end, he gave Leah more sons and Rachel also 2 sons of her own, Joseph and Benjamin. That is how gracious God is. I will leave you with this, and I encourage you to go and read this wonderful story. It shows you a picture of hopelessness, of just evil quarrels that are not even worth it, and of not counting on God on everything. Dear brothers and sisters, we need to look to the source. And the source is God himself. Jesus Christ is the source of everything. We don't go to mandrakes. We don't go to manipulate people. We don't look into what people are seeing in us. What is important is what is God seeing in us. Any situation you will face, cry out to him. He said, bring your anxieties, your weariness, or your burdens to me. So you don't have to go through all these type of quarrels with people and type of mandrakes and manipulation and control and all these kind of things. So I encourage you to read Genesis 30 for yourself and enjoy. Shalom.